Creative friends, welcome to my channel, and here it is Tuesday, and that means this is Pantry Cooking for Two Tuesday. And I'm going to show you what I'm going to make, and this is the cube steak that I took out for one of our freezer meal challenges. And so I'm not going to do it like what you would think normal cube steak. I'm going to do it in a way that we've done. It's really good. We like it. And it is where you take the cube steak, and I like to cut them. So this is two nice cube steaks, and they're cut into like steak fingers. Sometimes I'll do this and I'll just put you know, I'll make little steak fingers out of them. But for this, they're actually going to go in a really cool, like, tomato-y sauce. I've got stewed tomatoes here. I've got some tomato paste. And I've got these tomatoes, okra, and corn, a can of that, just because I have it. You could just put corn in there. You could put, if you wanted the one that's just the okra and tomatoes. Some people don't like that. But really, you could even put beans. Whatever you want in here is fine. But you do need the tomatoes, and you do need the tomato paste. I also have one of these frozen seasoning blends. I like to get this just because it's easier for me. Because if I buy red bell peppers and green bell peppers, they tend to not get used when I need them. They're not ready. They're not there for me if they're used, or sometimes they just go bad. So I like to buy the seasoning blend that's frozen. So I have that. Onion powder, garlic powder, some sort of seasoning. I like the Creole seasoning, the Tony's, the best. And also little paprika, whatever you want to have on there. So what I've got here is I've got also some flour, and I already have it seasoned. I might put a little bit more Tony's in there because I love Tony's. Anyway, so I'm putting a little of that in there. And I'm not going to add any salt because Tony's is a little bit salty, but I am going to grind a little bit of pepper. And I'm going to put this in the pan too. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to dredge these little bits of cube steak in the flour. And then I'm going to put it in a pan, and I am going to brown these in a little bit of oil. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get all of these coated nicely. And they're just going to brown. And then all we're going to do is add some tomato paste and the vegetable stuff, the tomatoes and all that. And then it's going to go in there, and it's going to simmer until it's nice and thick. And then I'm going to serve it over rice with a side of some broccoli. So it's going to be good. So this is how we're going to do the cube steaks, which normally, you know, people fry them, make like chicken fried steak kind of thing with them or whatever. But not me. Not tonight. That's not what I'm making. So I'm going to go ahead and finish these. And then I'll bring it over to the skillet, or the pan that I'm using, and we'll brown these all up. So, come on over there in just a moment. Well, I kind of messed up. I forgot to season the meat first. So, I'm going to go ahead and season it. And I season it with the same stuff that's already in the flour. I'm just going to season it, and then we'll kind of try to put some more flour on it, I guess. That happens. I got to thinking about making sure that my flour was seasoned, and I forgot to season the meat. So, it's okay. The flour's seasoned really well. But I'm just going to turn this over and try to get a little bit of that flour, of that seasoning on there. Some of the onion powder, which I discovered keeping them in these cool jars is not helping my onion powder at all. Oops. Because they don't seal out the air, so the stuff is getting hard. A little garlic powder, so I am going to fix that. I'm going to add some garlic powder to the flour. And I already have the paprika and the Tony's in there, so I was thinking about that. But I want to get it on the meat, so I'm going to just go ahead and recoat these a little bit. I'm sure I'm not the first person in the world who forgot to do this. And I'm sure it's going to be fine anyway. So, I just want to get that seasoning on there. Those will be fine. I can see it on there, so I know it's going to get the flavor in there. And I can always add some to it if I want. But I like it to be cooked into the meat. So there's that. Sitting here with all those jars of spices next to me and never thought to use them. Boy, until I'm distracted with dinner tonight. Okay. I think those are fine. Now we're going to get over to the pan and we will fry them. So now they're more seasoned. They're going to be even. Okay, I've got these in the pan. I'm going to show you. Maybe you can see. There you go. And I'm going to do this in 2 batches so that these can brown nicely. So I'm just going to brown these. And then what I'm going to do is put in everything else. Basically, I'm going to put the vegetables in and kind of saute them a little bit. And then the tomato sauce paste, and I'm going to put the tomato paste in, and then the vegetables, and then the stewed tomatoes. Now, I'm using a can. I'm using cans because I don't just have only home canned items. I have store-bought cans too. And this one, I know when I canned my tomatoes, and this one's been on the shelf for a while, so I'm going to use this one instead of home canned. And this one, I love this. Actually, I love it a lot. But you know, the only place I think I found it once at Safeway. Most of the time, I get this at the Dollar Tree. It's the best, so I like that. So I like this too because I can use little tiny bits. And I'm going to use about 2 tablespoons in here. But I like this instead of having to open a can. And of course, I already told you how convenient I think the little frozen seasoning blend is. So now I'm just going to get these nice and browned. And when they are all browned and I'm ready to move on, I'll bring you back. Okay, I've got all of the cube steak slices or fingers all browned, and now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna get my little wooden thing here, and now I'm going to, there's a little bit of the baked on stuff in the bottom, so I'm going to deglaze that. But for first, I'm going to put about 2 tablespoons of tomato paste in. Okay. I'm going to kind of cook that down a little bit in there. I just want you to be able to see. There you go. And now I'm going to put in about half of the bag of the seasoning blend. If you want to, I'd say it's a couple stalks of celery, maybe half an onion, a little bit of green pepper, maybe a quarter of peppers. I'm going to cook that around with that tomato paste. And then I'm going to put a little bit of water in there and kind of try to deglaze the bottom of the pan for all the things cooked onto it. So I'm going to show you. See, can you see? Looks good. So we're just going to keep that going. Turn the heat back up. So we're just going to stir this around until I get the bottom of the pan all cleaned off nice. Let me bring you over so maybe you can see it a little better. Tilt you down. There you go. Okay. There you go. And you can tell the flour as it's cooking with that water, it's kind of making it a little bit thicker. So I'm just going to keep cooking this until it's all maybe about 5 minutes, and then I'll come back to you. So I'm just gonna stir this around for about 5 minutes. I need to get the heat up a little bit higher, and then I'm gonna put the stewed tomatoes in. You can see that tomato paste. Oh my gosh, it's making these vegetables so good, and getting the scraping off the bottom. See how I'm getting that off? So yummy. This is going to be a really good dinner. And I'm just going to serve it with some steamed rice. And I'm going to put some vegetables. Although it's kind of nice because this can be just like one thing on rice. Maybe I won't do vegetables because I've got all these other vegetables in here. So maybe I'll save the broccoli for tomorrow night, since this already has so much vegetable already in it. Okay, I'm going to get this nice and hot until it's all bubbly, and then I'm going to add in the other veggies. Okay, that's all nice and simmering. I'm going to add in the stewed tomatoes now, and I'm going to chop these up a bit and get them all chopped, and we'll get that back up to hot, and then we'll put in the other vegetables, and then we just put in the meat, and we actually will just let this simmer for probably 45 minutes or so until it's just all nice and cooked and thick and can go right over that rice. So this is going to be so good. I'm going to turn this up. Just going to stir this around a bit, break those tomatoes up. And if you want more tomato flavor, if you're a dehydrator and you have that tomato powder, this would be a perfect thing to put it in. Or any of your dehydrated onions. This would be a thing, would be perfect for like dehydrated peppers, onions, celery, because it's going to cook for a long time. It's going to simmer for a long time, and it would help rehydrate those. But remember, you would want to put in a little bit of extra water. Okay, I'm going to bring this up to a little bit of a boil, and then I'll bring you back. Okay, it's starting to simmer. Now I'm going to add in this with the okra and corn. I love this stuff. It's so good. They also have, I think it's a seasoned, I want to say seasoned beans, like pinto beans. They're really good. So I just like these. And Dollar Tree, that's where I get them. Okay, so now you see what we have here? So good. Now I'm going to bring this up to a boil again, but first I'm going to go ahead and put all that meat in there. Now, this is going to, I'm going to mix this around nice. So we'll get it to a boil, and then we bring it, they almost look like little sausages, but they're not. Okay, so I'm going to bring it to a boil, and then I'm going to turn it down to a nice low simmer and put the lid on a little bit ajar so that it'll thicken nicely. I'm still going to cut up a little bit of that tomato. Funny that I do not like raw tomatoes, can't eat them, never have been able to, but I do love stewed tomatoes. And like tomatoes and okra, I love that too. Alright, so, okay, that looks good. Now I'm going to get that up to a boil, and then I'll show you what that's like, and then I'm going to simmer. So I'll be right back. Okay, now it's boiling. It's probably going to simmer for about 30, maybe 40 minutes. And it'll be just right because it's already pretty nice and thick. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is just going to kind of keep it at that simmer. But I think I'm going to turn it down to 5. Okay. Now I'm going to put my lid on. Only I'm going to keep it from closing, so I have my little pot chickens, like a little silicone chicken that sits on there. Keeps my lid from closing. See there? Alright. Yeah, we'll turn that down a little. Perfect. Alright, so I'm going to let that go, and I'll bring you back in about 30 minutes, and we'll take a look. You know, sometimes when you're cooking, and you know, I do most of my cooking just from my memory, and I'm thinking to myself, this is really thick to need to sit there and simmer for that long. Why is it so thick? Because I forgot the cup of beef broth. You need to put a cup of beef broth in there too. And that is going to be, I don't know what, I am forgetting this stuff. But you know what, this is kind of like a blooper for you. I'm not going to go back and redo everything. So there you go. Now that makes sense, that that's going to have to sit there for about a half an hour or 45 minutes and simmer. Otherwise, it would not have been right. So I kept thinking there is something wrong here. And then I realized it was the beef broth. So you got to add beef broth to this too. So if you want this recipe, you're probably just going to have to kind of write it down. So you got your cube steaks, you cut them into like fingers, and then you season the meat and season flour, and then you dredge the steaks in the flour, and then you come over and you brown them. And then after they're browned, you pour off any extra oil, and then you put some tomato paste, like I used about 2 tablespoons, tomato paste in there, put a little water and kind of deglaze the little bits off the bottom of the pan. Then you add a can of stewed tomatoes. Of course, you can multiply this as much as you want, but you add a can of stewed tomatoes, and then you can add any other vegetables. Oh, you got to put your little seasoning blend of the onions and peppers. Put that in there, and then you add your tomatoes, and you cook all that around. Then you put your steaks back in there and any other vegetables that you like. And beef broth. You put a cup of beef broth in here if you're going to use 2 cans or a can of stewed tomatoes and other vegetables. You're going to put some beef broth in there and put your steaks in there, and now we're going to let it simmer for about a half an hour or 45 minutes with the lid on, but not all the way down, so it's got a little space for steam to come out. Now I've got the recipe right for you, so there you go. I'll come back when it's ready to serve. Okay guys, you can see this has been about 25 minutes, and you can see how nice and thick it's got. That's going to be beautiful with the rice. So now I've got the rice cooked. I'm going to go ahead and put some of this in a bowl, and then put a nice big dollop of rice next to it, and I'll show you how that looks all served up. Alright guys, there you have it. That is tomato vegetable cube steak with rice. There you go. I hope you guys give these things a try, and if you like it, let me know. I'd love to know what you think about it and what any alterations or changes or ideas that you have with these meals. So as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.